The sound hit me before I even saw her. A rough, uneven coughing echoed across the empty country road, like metal trying to breathe through a straw. My own truck was already steaming on the shoulder, hood up, radiator hissing into the thick July air. I was hot, tired, and one bad day away from giving up. Then I heard that other engine. I turned toward the field across from me and saw it. An old Massey Ferguson tractor. Red paint faded to the color of dried blood, bumping along the fence line. It was beautiful, in a beat-up way, the kind of machine you can tell has lived a real life. But it sounded like it was dying. And on the seat was a woman who looked like she could bend the weather to her will. She wore a frayed straw hat pulled low, a white tank top and denim shorts that had seen actual work. Sweat glowed on her collarbone. Her arms were tight as she fought the steering wheel, guiding the big tractor through a deep rut. Every time the engine coughed, her head tilted just a little, like she was listening to a sick heartbeat. She eased off the throttle, then killed the engine at the exact moment the knocking got worse. The field went quiet. The hum of cicadas rushed in to fill the silence. I wiped grease from my hands onto my jeans and walked to the fence line. The air smelled like diesel and sun-baked hay, sharp and familiar. She didn't climb down right away. Instead, she popped the side panel open and leaned in. Her fingers ran along the fuel line. She pressed her thumb against a loose clamp, like she already knew where the weak spot was. Then she reached behind the seat, pulled out a short pry bar, and used it to tighten the bracket. Smart. Less muscle, more leverage. She tapped the starter once. The engine rattled in the same uneven way. "It's the injector pump," she said softly, more to the tractor than to me. She pointed at a damp sheen around the housing, then at a dark streak on the block. "And he's not a she, he's big red." Only then did she look up at me. Her eyes slid over my belt, my dirty hands, the way I was watching the engine instead of staring at her. She didn't smile. She weighed me, like she was deciding something. "Nice truck," she said, nodding toward my dead pickup on the road. I snorted before I could stop myself. "You must be hearing something I don't." She patted the narrow Fender seat beside her on the tractor. "You're the only guest I allow up here." I blinked. "You want me to ride?" "I want you to listen," she said. She turned the key again. The engine groaned back to life. "If you know what a cracked manifold sounds like, maybe you can tell me why the hydraulics are screaming." That got my attention. I grabbed the top of the old fence and swung a leg over. The steps were rusted but solid. When I climbed up onto Big Red, the closeness hit me all at once. Diesel, warm metal, crushed hay, and something softer on her skin. Vanilla, maybe. I sat on the fender seat. My shoulder brushed hers as the tractor lurched forward. For the first time in 6 months, I didn't feel like I was drifting. We rolled along the edge of the field. The farm was a strange mix. The rows of soy and corn were straight and perfect, but the buildings were tired. Barn doors sagged on one hinge. Fences leaned like they'd given up arguing with the wind. You didn't need a loan statement to see the truth. This place was stretched thin. Mailbox stuffed with past-due envelopes. An old photo tacked to the barn wall of a man in a straw hat, hand resting on this same tractor, smiling like Big Red was part of the family. The name on the deed was his. But it wasn't here anymore. What was left was her. One woman trying to hold together 40 years of work with calloused hands and hope. By the time we reached the main barn, I had a mental list of at least 30 things wrong with the tractor alone. We rolled into the shade. She shut off the engine, and dust floated through the beams of light from the open doors. "I'm Savannah," she said, pulling off her gloves. She held out a hand. "Aries," I said, taking it. Her grip was firm and rough, real. "I'm a fabricator, or I was." Her eyebrow lifted. "Like what?" "Farm stuff." Quote, "Custom engine mounts, weird brackets, parts they don't make anymore," I said, eyeing Big Red's engine. "I can make metal do things it doesn't want to do." Before she could answer, I heard tires crunch on the gravel drive. A black sedan pulled up outside the barn. The man who stepped out looked like the opposite of this place. Crisp white shirt, clean shoes, clipboard. Savannah went still beside me. The air seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Sterling?" she said under her breath. He walked in without looking around. "Miss Green," he said. No handshake, just a pen tapping on his clipboard. "I see Big Red is still operational." "Barely. He runs fine," Savannah said. Her jaw tightened. "Does he?" Sterling walked around the tractor like he was inspecting a crime scene. He pointed at an exposed belt with his pen. "No guard. Leak in the hydraulic line. And that roll bar is not code compliant for a commercial operation with employees." "I don't have employees," she snapped. "It's just me." "And that's the problem," he said, checking a box. "The bank requires full safety compliance before we renew the harvest loan. You have 3 weeks. If this machinery isn't up to OSHA standards, we pull the funding. No loan, no fuel, no transport, no harvest." He handed her a sheet of paper. It looked too small to carry that much threat. 3 weeks, he repeated. "Or I tag the equipment and the farm shuts down." Then he turned and walked back to his car like he had just ordered a salad. Savannah stared at the paper. Her shoulders stayed square, but her fingers shook before she forced them still. When she finally spoke, it wasn't loud. 3 weeks, she said again, like she was counting down to something she refused to name. 10 minutes later, another truck rolled up. This one was a lifted pickup, shiny and clean, with tires that had never touched real mud. The guy who stepped out wore new denim and a big, easy grin. "Savannah Green," he said, leaning in the barn doorway like it belonged to him. "Heard Sterling was coming by. Thought I'd stop in before he scared you into selling." Savannah's mouth tightened. "Not interested, Cade." His eyes slid to me, then to my tool belt. "Didn't know you'd hired help." "I'm not hired," I said, "just passing through." He laughed like that was cute. "Sure. Well, I'm your nearest neighbor by acreage. I like to keep an eye on things." He glanced at the same hydraulic line Sterling had pointed at, then back at Savannah. "Banks don't like surprises. County doesn't either. Lots of rules these days." "Are you threatening me?" she asked. "Offering a lifeline," he said, raising his hands. "I can buy this place. Cash. Quick close. You walk away clean. If you wait until the bank pulls funding, you walk away with nothing." "I'd rather go down swinging," Savannah said. "That's a romantic way to lose a family legacy," Cade replied. He gave me one more long look, then tipped an invisible hat and walked off. 3 weeks. See you around." When his truck disappeared, the barn felt too big again, too empty. "He's been circling for a year," Savannah said quietly. "He wants the land. He wants the creek. He wants to be the guy who saved the valley by owning it." "Then he's not a neighbor," I said. "He's a vulture." She met my eyes. For the first time, the tough mask slipped, and I saw the fear under it. And something else. A sharp, careful kind of trust. "That's why I can't mess this up," she whispered. "Then we don't," I said. I put my hand on Big Red's Fender. "We fix him, we do it right, and we don't give them a single excuse." She looked at the tractor, then at my hands. "I can't pay you," she said. "Not what you're worth." "My truck needs a new radiator and a place to sit while the parts come in," I said. "Room and board. Let me work in this shop, that's all." She searched my face, looking for the catch. "Why?" she asked. "Because I hated seeing good people crushed by men with clipboards. Because the air felt different when she stood next to me. Because it bothers me when a machine this honest gets treated like junk," I said instead. She hesitated, then nodded once. "Guest cottage is out back. It has running water and a bed. Dinner is at 6. Quote. The next morning at first light, I stood in the barn with Big Red's engine open in front of me like a chest cavity. Parts lined up on a tarp, tools laid out in order. Outside, I could already hear Savannah in the field, driving an even older backup tractor through the rows. 3 weeks. A broken farm. A woman who refused to bend. And me, a man who thought he was just passing through, with my hands on the machine that might save her whole life. By the second day, Big Red's engine was spread out on a canvas tarp like a puzzle only I understood. I worked in the barn with the big doors open, letting the heavy summer air move through. My shirt stuck to my back, my hands were black with grease, and my world had shrunk down to bolts, lines, and the steady logic of metal. Outside, I could hear Savannah in the field. The backup tractor she was using sounded even older than Big Red. Its engine whined as she turned the soil, steady and stubborn. Every now and then, I would catch a glimpse of her across the rows, small against the wide sky, driving like the farm's heartbeat depended on her alone. By noon, the humidity felt like a wet blanket over everything. I had the injector pump on the bench, broken down in pieces. I was welding a new bracket for a safety guard when I heard footsteps behind me. I lifted my welding mask. Savannah stood in the doorway carrying a glass pitcher full of iced tea. Her tank top was damp with sweat, her hair pulled back under that straw hat. She paused when she saw what I'd done. "You actually did it," she said. "Did what?" I asked. "Pulled half his guts out," she said, nodding toward the tractor. "Most people around here just hit him with a wrench and pray." "I told you I would," I said. She poured the tea into a glass and handed it to me. Our fingers brushed. Her skin was warm, the glass cold, and the contrast sent a sharp little spark up my arm. "You move like you've done this a million times," she said. "I used to build custom hot rods," I told her, taking a sip. The tea was sweet and freezing. It hit the back of my throat like heaven. Rich guys! Toys! They wanted them to look dangerous but be safe enough to drive to the country club. She looked at Big Red, at the scattered parts, the clean lines of the new metal I had shaped. "And this?" she asked. "This is honest work," I said, setting the glass down. I patted the tractor's fender. "This feeds people." "It feeds me," she said quietly. "If it runs." "It'll run," I said. I picked up a tool and turned back to the bench. "Better than before." I felt her eyes on me as I worked. The barn was quiet except for the clink of metal and the low buzz of insects outside. I measured, cut, and fitted a spacer for the new guard on the lathe. The metal came off in thin curls, shining as they fell. When I slid the finished piece into place, it clicked in with a clean, perfect sound. "Show off," she murmured. There was a hint of a smile in her voice this time. That night, we ate dinner on the front porch. Fried chicken, corn that tasted like sunshine, and fresh bread still warm in the middle. Fireflies blinked over the fields like someone had shaken a jar of stars across the grass. Savannah sat across from me at the small table, bare feet up on the railing, plate balanced on her knees. "Why did you leave the city?" she asked. She didn't look at me when she said it. Her gaze stayed on the tree line like the answer might be hiding there. "Partner trouble," I said, keeping it simple. "I put the work in. He put the money in. Turns out he also put the money into his own pocket. I got left with the debt and an empty shop." I shrugged like it didn't matter. "You lost everything?" she asked. "Pretty much," I said. "I walked away with a truck, a toolbox, and a headache that lasted 3 months." "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be," I said. "If it hadn't gone that way, I wouldn't be sitting here eating the best fried chicken I've ever had." That made her look at me. The porch light lit half her face, leaving the other half in soft shadow. I saw the stubborn line of her jaw, the curve of her mouth, the tired weight around her eyes that didn't erase how pretty they were. "I'm glad you're here, Aries," she said. "Me too," I answered. The moment stretched, tight and quiet. I wanted to reach across the table and take her hand, but I didn't. I was technically just the guy fixing her machinery, sleeping in her guest cottage, trying not to stare at her when she wasn't looking. Over the next 2 weeks, we fell into a rhythm. I fixed things. She ran the farm. Big Red came back together piece by piece. New guard. Adjusted injector pump. Cleaned lines. Rebuilt brackets. Every fix made him sound a little stronger. While I worked on the tractor, I started seeing other things too. The screen door that stuck every time she tried to open it with her hands full. The loose railing on the porch. The way the barn latch never quite caught. One afternoon while she was in town picking up supplies, I took the screen door off its hinges, planed the edge, and oiled everything. When she got home, she braced her shoulder and shoved it like always. The door flew open smooth and silent. She almost stumbled. She looked at the door, then at me, standing in the kitchen with a mug of coffee. "You fixed the door," she said. "It was annoying me," I said, pretending to focus on the mug. She walked over and set a bag of groceries on the counter. She didn't say thank you. Instead, she reached out and squeezed my forearm, a quick, firm pressure that sent heat through my whole body. "You ruined me for any other mechanic," she said. "Good," I said without thinking. Her lips twitched, like she was fighting a smile she didn't want to show me yet. But the clock was still ticking. Sterling was due back in 4 days. We had the new roll cage installed and bolted down tight. The engine purred like it had been waiting years to breathe right. But the hydraulic system for the loader bucket still worried me. The hoses were old, and the new ones I had ordered were delayed. We didn't get extra days. We got a storm instead. On a Tuesday afternoon, the air went still in that strange way it does right before the sky breaks. Clouds rolled in, purple and heavy, stacking on top of each other over the fields. "I need to check the drainage by the creek," Savannah said, grabbing her hat. "If it floods, the lower field is done." "I'll go with you," I said. "I'll be quick," she replied. "Finish the torque on those bolts. We need that roll cage tight." Before I could argue, she was already out the door. I finished the last bolt, wiped my hands, and stepped to the barn entrance just as the sky opened. The rain didn't start slowly. It fell all at once, a wall of water hammering the roof and turning the yard into slick, shining mud. I waited 10 minutes. She didn't come back. My dead truck sat useless under the lean-to. I turned and looked at Big Red. The roll cage was done. The seat wasn't fully bolted down yet, but the engine was solid. "Don't make me regret this," I muttered, climbing up. Big Red fired up with a deep, healthy roar. I drove him out into the storm, wipers slapping weakly at the sheets of rain. I found her near the creek. The backup tractor was buried up to its axles in thick mud, tilted at a bad angle. The creek was swollen, water rushing by faster than it should. Savannah was in the middle of it all, soaked through, trying to jam a board under the back tire. Her boots slipped, her hands muddy, her face tight with panic. I pulled Big Red up onto the highest ground I could find and jumped down. The mud sucked at my boots. "Savannah!" I shouted. She spun around, rain running down her face like tears. "I can't lose this tractor too," she yelled back. "If it washes out, we're done." "Leave it," I said, grabbing her arm. "It's just metal." "It's my livelihood," she said, yanking free. "I can't afford to lose it." "And you can't afford to drown," I shot back. I moved past her and waded into the deeper mud. The water lapped at my shins. I hooked a heavy tow chain from Big Red's drawbar to the stuck tractor's axle. My hands were slick with rain and grease, but knots don't care about weather. They only care if you know what you're doing. When the chain was set, I climbed back onto Big Red. "Get up here!" I shouted. She hesitated for a heartbeat, then scrambled up onto the Fender seat beside me, grabbing the new safety handle I had welded there. I eased the clutch out, careful, patient. Big Red dug in. His tires slipped once, then caught. The engine growled, strong and deep. The stuck tractor groaned, then broke free with a loud, muddy pop. We dragged it to higher ground and away from the angry water. By the time we pulled into the barn, the storm was roaring so loud on the tin roof it sounded like the sky was falling. I killed the engine. The sudden quiet inside the barn made my ears ring. We were both soaked through, clothes clinging to our skin, boots squishing on the concrete. Savannah slid off the fender and leaned back against Big Red's massive rear tire. Her chest was heaving. Her hands shook as she pushed wet hair away from her face. "I thought I lost it," she whispered. I stood in front of her, rainwater dripping off my hair onto the floor. The adrenaline slowly faded, leaving something heavier behind. The air between us felt charged, like the storm had moved inside. "You didn't lose it," I said. I've got you." She lifted her eyes to mine, and whatever walls she usually kept up were gone. It wasn't just relief I saw there. It was something raw and hungry and real. "Why do you stay?" she asked softly. "You fixed your truck 3 days ago. I saw the parts box in the trash." I froze for a second. She had noticed. "Yeah," I said, "I did." "So why are you still here?" she asked. My first answer was weak, and we both knew it. "Because the roll cage wasn't painted." She took off her hat and tossed it onto the workbench. Her hair clung to her neck and shoulders, darkened by the rain. "Aries," she said quietly, "stop fixing the tractor and tell me the truth." I took a breath I didn't even know I was holding. "I stay because of you," I said. My voice came out rough. "Because you're the toughest person I've ever met. Because you're out there fighting storms and banks and vultures, and I want to be the one who makes sure your door doesn't stick and your tractor starts." She stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat of her even through our wet clothes. Her hands came up to my face, palms cold, touch burning. "Then stop talking," she whispered. She kissed me. It tasted like rain and fear and relief and something I hadn't felt in a long time. I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her closer, feeling her grab tight, like she was afraid I might disappear with the storm. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Inside, everything I thought I was doing here shifted in one single fierce moment. The morning after the storm hit harder than the rain. The clouds were gone, but the air felt strange, like the world had shifted a little during the night. My body ached from the work, and from holding on to Savannah like she was the only solid thing in the flood. We had fallen asleep in the guest cottage for a few hours, still damp, both of us too tired to overthink what happened in the barn. When I woke up, she was already gone. The smell of coffee came from the kitchen in the main house. I pulled on clean jeans and a shirt and headed toward the barn. The power was out across the property. No lights, no fans, only the sound of early insects and the distant rush of the creek, still running high from the storm. Big Red sat where we left him, roll cage solid, engine dry. The backup tractor did not. Through the open barn door I saw it out near the creek. It sat crooked on the slope, nose pointed downhill, a dark stain spread under its belly. From a distance, it looked like a bad leak. Savannah stood on the bank, arms crossed, staring at it. At first I thought it was just bad luck, old hose, too much stress, storm damage. Sterling would call it negligence. Mother Nature would call it Tuesday. But something felt wrong. I grabbed a flashlight and slid down the wet bank, mud sucking at my boots. The smell hit me before I got close. Not just hydraulic fluid. Sharper. Chemical. I knelt under the tractor, wiped the hose with a rag and ran my thumb along the split. It was too clean. Too straight. Hoses fail and jagged tears twisted bursts. They do not break like someone took a knife and made one long smooth cut. My jaw clenched. I pulled my phone from my pocket and took pictures from 3 angles. Close. Wide. Hose. Stain. I then took a small section of the cut line, slid it into a clean plastic bag from my toolbox, and taped the end shut. Evidence. If someone wanted this farm shut down, they had just left fingerprints and rubber. I climbed back up the bank. Savannah watched my face. "Well?" she asked. "It is not just a leak," I said. "This line was cut. On purpose." Her face went blank in that way. "That means someone is trying very hard not to break." "Cade," she said. We did not get time to say more. Sterling's sedan showed up 2 days early. He pulled onto the property like nothing was wrong, stepped out with his same white shirt and clipboard, and headed straight for the creek, like someone had told him exactly where to look. He stared at the rainbow sheen on the wet mud, then turned around slowly. "Environmental hazard," he said. "Fluid in a waterway. That is an immediate cease and desist." "It was a storm," Savannah said. Her voice shook, but her spine stayed straight. "We were saving the equipment." "Does not matter," Sterling said. "Regulations are regulations." Quote. He pulled a bright red tag from his clipboard and slapped it onto the barn door. "Shut it down," he said. "No operation, no harvest, until full remediation is done. That process takes weeks. You will miss your window." Savannah went pale. Missing the window meant losing the farm. No harvest meant no money. No money meant the bank would not need a storm or a rule to end this place. They would just need a stamp. "I will appeal," she said. "Appeals take months," Sterling said, almost gentle. "I am sorry, Savannah." He walked back to his car and drove off. Savannah did not yell. She did not cry. She just stood there in the yard until the dust settled and the sound of his engine faded. Then she turned and walked toward the house, movements stiff and slow. "I need to check something," I said. I cut across the back field toward the creek again, but this time I did not stop at the tractor. Down in the trees, near the bend in the water, I heard a low idle. A different engine, patient and soft. I moved along the fence line, staying behind the posts. Cade's truck sat near the creek, half hidden by branches. He was standing behind it with a 5-gallon can in his hand, pouring the last of something dark into the wet ground right where Sterling had pointed earlier. He was not cleaning. He was making a mess. I hit record on my phone and stepped into the open. Then I snapped my flashlight on and aimed the beam straight at him. He froze, one boot still in the mud. "What are you doing, Cade?" I asked. He tried to smile. "Helping," he said. "Cleaning up. Looks like you sprung a leak." I walked closer, keeping the phone steady. "Prove it," he said. "Prove I did anything wrong." I held up the bagged hose section so he could see the clean, cut through the plastic. Then I tilted my phone so the red recording light shone right back at him. Savannah's voice came from behind me, calm and cold. "Get off my land." Cade's easy grin cracked. For a second I saw the man under it, the one who thought he already owned this place in his head. He set the empty can down, climbed into his truck, and drove away faster than he meant to. I saved the video twice, then emailed it to myself with a subject line I would not forget, and a timestamp. When I walked back to the house, Savannah was in the kitchen. She had both hands on the edge of the counter, knuckles white. Her eyes were dry, but it looked like it was costing her. "You should go," she said without turning around. "No," I said. "The farm is done, Aries." Her voice was flat. "I cannot pay you. I cannot feed you. It is over." "It is a hydraulic spill," I said. "It is soil remediation. I have a hazmat cert from my old shop. I can handle it." "It does not matter," she said, spinning to face me. Her eyes were blazing, bright with tears she refused to let fall. "I failed. My father kept this place going for 40 years. I lost it in 5. "You did not lose it," I said. "You have been fighting a war with a stick while everyone else brought rifles." "Just go," she said. "Please, I do not want you here when I have to watch them take everything." She was trying to protect me, push me away before the ship went under. I stepped in close, not touching her, just close enough that she had to look up at me. "I am not going anywhere," I said. My voice dropped, anger and something deeper mixing together. "I fixed your tractor. I fixed your door. Now I am going to fix this." "How?" she whispered. "I have a plan," I said, "but I need you to trust me, and I need you to sign something." Her eyebrows pulled together. "Sign what?" "A simple contract," I said. "Gives me temporary authority to act as safety and remediation lead for the farm. So when I talk to the county and the bank, they have to listen. They do not get to treat me like the random guy in your barn. They have to treat me like the person in charge of fixing this mess." She stared at me for a long moment, breathing hard. Then she nodded once. "I trust you," she said. Those 3 words landed heavier than the red tag on the barn. We sat at the small kitchen table. I wrote the basics on a legal pad. Name, dates, scope, authority. She signed with a steady hand. The next 48 hours were a blur. If I was just a fabricator before, now as a one-man army, I called in every favor I had. I found an emergency cleanup contractor 2 counties over who owed my old boss a favor and by extension owed me. I logged every shovel of dirt we touched in a chain of custody file. I documented everything. Photos of the cut hose, notes on the weather, maps of the exact spill area, soil samples in labeled bags, GPS coordinates. I did not just patch a problem. I built a case. Then I called my old business partner, the one who stole from me. He answered on the second ring. "Aries, I thought you blocked my number." "I need one thing," I said. "You verify my hazardous material handling credentials to the county board by 9 a.m. tomorrow. If you do it, I delete your number and we are done forever. If you do not, I call the IRS and tell them about the creative accounting you used in 2022. He cursed under his breath. "I will do it," he said. By the time the sun set on the second day, my hands were raw, my back screamed, and the binder on the table in front of me was 3 inches thick. It held cleanup contracts, sample logs, photos, certifications, and a step-by-step plan to make this farm cleaner and safer than it had been in years. On the third day, it was time to walk into the lion's den. Savannah and I drove to the bank's regional office in my now-fixed truck. The sky was gray again, a light rain tapping the windshield. She sat stiff in the passenger seat, hands twisted together in her lap. "You sure about this?" she asked. "No," I said honestly, "but I know we have more proof than they expect." We walked into a small conference room that smelled like coffee and old paperwork. Sterling sat at one side of the table, clipboard in front of him. Beside him were 2 people I did not know, one in a suit with a stack of files, the other with a laptop open. In the back row, leaning in a chair like this was a show he had front row seats for, sat Cade Mercer. He gave Savannah a small smile like he was already sorry for her loss. I set the binder on the table. It landed with a heavy thud that made everyone look up. "What is this?" the woman with the laptop asked. "Proof," I said, "and a way to fix your problem without killing her farm." The woman with the laptop leaned forward. "Walk me through it," she said. I opened the binder and turned to the first tab. "Tab A," I said. "Emergency cleanup." Inside were copies of a signed contract with the hazmat company, photos of their gear on standby, and a schedule for soil removal and treatment. "We did not wait for permission to start planning," I said. "We started containment as soon as the spill happened. Sandbags, trenches, pumps, all here. Every step logged and ready to go the second you give the word." She studied the pages, nodding slowly. I flipped to the next tab. Tab B, soil samples. Chain of custody. Labeled bags, photos, timestamps, GPS points. A printed trail even a bad lawyer could not break. "This shows where the spill went and how we kept it from spreading," I said. "Nothing hidden, nothing skipped." The man in the suit, the risk officer, leaned in closer. "Who signed this chain?" he asked. "I did," I said. "And the crew lead from the cleanup company. Also, my hazmat cert is on file with the county." I slid a separate sheet across the table. "Verified yesterday." He checked the printout, then glanced at his screen where a copy had already arrived from the board. "Confirmed," he said. Sterling shifted in his chair like someone had pulled his cushion out from under him. "We still have the safety issues on the equipment," he said. "The roll bar, the guards, the leaks. The bank cannot risk a loan on non-compliant machinery." I nodded and opened tab C. "This is the safety mitigation file," I said. "New roll cage, guarding, shielding, all built to meet or beat the standard." I laid out photos of Big Red with the new roll cage, the reinforced guards, the labeled hydraulic lines. I added my fabrication notes, simple and clear. "I did not just patch parts," I said. "I redesigned the weak spots. This shielding is stronger than the original factory design. It redirects bursts away from operators. I built it, I installed it, I logged it." The woman with the laptop scrolled through a digital version of the same file. "These designs are solid," she said. "This meets safety requirements." Sterling opened his mouth, but I was already reaching for the last tab. "And finally," I said, "Tab D." I slid a clear evidence envelope onto the table. Inside was the cut section of hose, sealed and labeled. Next to it, I placed a USB drive and printed screenshots. "Tampering," I said. "This line was not worn out. It was cut, clean and straight. Then more fluid was poured onto the ground after the storm. That is not negligence, that is sabotage." The room went very still. The compliance director picked up the printed screenshots. The first image showed Cade's truck by the creek. The second showed him pouring from the can. The third had my flashlight on him, his face caught in the beam. "I also have full video," I said. with audio, timestamps, GPS. Already backed up and emailed to myself in case anyone tries to make it disappear. Cade pushed his chair back with a loud scrape. "This is insane," he said. "You cannot prove that hose was not already damaged. You cannot prove what was in that can. Rain washes things around. He could have staged all of this." He pointed at me like I was the problem. I slid one last paper onto the table. A printout of the email chain from the cleanup company confirming the product limits, and a note from the county lab about testing the soil. "As soon as the spill is cleaned, the soil will be tested," I said. "If the sample matches the kind of fluid your equipment uses and not the kind the tractor uses, we will know. And we already have a piece of the hose that will show tool marks instead of stress tears." The risk officer looked at Cade, then at Sterling. "I think we need to step out for a moment," he said. They left the room. Cade stayed where he was, jaw tight, hands clenched on the back of his chair. Savannah sat beside me, shoulders straight, but eyes fixed on the table. "You think this will work?" she whispered. "It is already working," I said quietly. "They did not throw us out. That is step one." After a few long minutes, the door opened again. The risk officer and the compliance director came back in. Sterling followed, looking like a man who had just swallowed something sharp. The woman with the laptop spoke first. "Miss Green," she said, "the bank has reviewed your documentation. You acted quickly to contain the spill. You hired certified help. You improved your equipment to meet safety code. You have not ignored our requirements. You tried to meet them under pressure." She glanced at the risk officer, then back at Savannah. "We are lifting the hold on your account and allowing the harvest loan to move forward," she said. "Final approval will be conditioned on lab confirmation and completion of the remediation plan, but as of today, we will not block your harvest." Savannah's breath caught. She grabbed the edge of the table like she needed something to hold on to. "So I can work," she said. "Yes," the woman said. "You can work." Quote. "And what about the evidence of tampering?" I asked. The risk officer cleared his throat. "We will be sending that to the county," he said. "If a competing landowner interfered with your operation, there will be an investigation." He did not look at Cade, but he did not have to. Cade stood up. "This is a mistake," he said. "You are tying this whole valley to a farm that is already dying." Savannah stood too. "My farm is not dying," she said calmly. "You just picked the wrong person to cut down." She did not look at him again. That was what hurt him most. We walked out of the bank together into the damp air. The rain had slowed to a light drizzle. It felt cleaner than before, like the sky was finally letting us breathe. Neither of us said much on the drive back. When we pulled into the yard, the clouds were breaking. Sunlight slid over the wet fields, turning them gold and green. Cicadas started up again, like someone had turned the volume back on. Big Red waited in the barn. Red paint, still dull but new roll cage shining. Savannah walked up to him and rested her palm on the fender. "You came here to fix a tractor," she said. I leaned against the tire, watching her. "I came here because someone tried to break you," I said. "The tractor just gave me an excuse." She turned to face me. "I do not know how to say thank you for all of this," she said. "For staying, for fighting when I wanted to give up, for making people listen." "You already did," I said. "When?" she asked. "When you signed that paper and said you trusted me," I said. Her eyes softened. The hard, guarded lines I had seen the day I met her eased into something warmer. She climbed up onto Big Red's seat. Then she patted the narrow fender seat beside her. Same simple tap as the first day. Same tractor. Completely different meaning. "You are still the only guest I allow up here," she said. I climbed up and sat beside her. Our shoulders pressed together, solid and easy. She turned the key. Big Red started with a deep, steady rumble, no cough, no rattle, just power. We drove the fence line slowly. The field stretched out in front of us. The creek glinted in the distance. The barn, the house, the crooked porch railing I still needed to fix, all of it looked like something that could last. "You know you do not have to stay forever," Savannah said after a while. "Loan or no loan, harvest or no harvest. When this is over, you could go anywhere." "I know," I said. "And?" she asked. "And I do not want to go anywhere," I said. I like the way this place sounds when Big Red runs right. I like the way the door does not stick. I like dinner on that porch. I like you. She let out a breath she had been holding for days. "Good," she said softly. We finished the loop around the field and parked Big Red by the barn. As the engine idled down, she turned in her seat, took my face in her hands, and kissed me. This time there was no storm, no panic, no fear of losing everything in the next 5 minutes, just steady heat and the quiet promise of work and days and nights ahead. When she pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine. "Stay," she said. I did not give an answer with words. I gave it the way I know best. I climbed down, grabbed my tools, and walked toward the house. There was a back door that still needed a better latch and a future that finally felt like something we could build, one bolt and one choice at a time.